Hola y bienvenido al canal de Audiofilos y Locos. Espero que estés bien y que se te estén parando los pelos todo el tiempo escuchando buena música. Te traigo un corto video de un pequeño viaje que hice a la compañía rock y también tuve la oportunidad de entrevistar a Mark O'Brien, el diseñador y presidente y dueño original de la compañía. Te voy a pedir un favor, y es que como hay música muy conocida en el trasfondo, la cual no pude controlar, me van a desmonetizar este video. Espero que no lo bloqueen, así que por lo menos te voy a pedir que le des un like. Si quieres aportar también con Buy Me a Coffee, cómprame un café, lo puedes hacer, o considera también Patreon. Hola mis queridos audiófilos, voy de camino a Pennsyvania a la fábrica de Rogue Audio a ver a Mark O'Brien porque, como ustedes saben, o los que no lo sepan, yo tengo un preamplificador Rogue Hera y es un espécimen muy especial porque este es el número 1 que hicieron. Ni siquiera tiene número de serie, es el primero que hicieron y entonces pues está bastante viejito. Yo creo que tiene, bueno, 15 o 20 años. Y ya es hora de llevarlo para que lo prueben bien. El control de volumen tiene algunas cositas, así que voy a encontrarme con Mark en una hora o dos. Él lo va a probar. Ya yo le había cambiado los tubos, tiene tubos nuevos, pero voy a ver si puedo hablar con él o entrevistarlo y hacerle algunas preguntas importantes. Ok, espero que sí. Bueno, hasta pronto. Okay. Estamos en la fábrica de Rogue. Where's the Stereo 100? Those are popular now, right?
Yeah, this is the Stereo 100 down here.
Nice. Drive them. Are those with the Hypex units? Or?
Yep, that's a Dragon hybrid power amplifier. It has the Hypex M4 modules.
Nice.
It's very involved. It's very involved. But yeah,
So thank you for seeing my Hera.
Oh, absolutely.
As you know, this is probably like the first one you ever made
I think it might well be.
because it doesn't have a serial number.
Yeah, how...
So it's a very special unit,
it's a special unit.
and it's a statement unit.
Absolutely. This has probably been used at the CES show when it was introduced.
I have a feeling it went all over the world.
Yeah.
It looks like it did, but it works flawlessly, and I replaced the tubes on it. It's got those electro harmonics.
And Nick is looking at the channel matching right now.
Yeah, the volume control has some funky things. I did notice that there was some channel waving here and there sometimes.
So what?
Channel imbalances once in a while.
Okay.
But I replaced the tubes because there was already some tube rush in one of the channels. Yep. Could be in the original tubes from 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get... It's pretty close right now. You can see those are overlapping. Those are the two channels at a square wave at 1 kilohertz.
Okay.
And here, let me move that down. You can see it's a beautiful square wave too. And, so we're pretty close right now, and that's probably some. We can move some tubes around and get it just right.
Okay. There's no biasing on the tubes. I mean, unless you do it yourselves.
Yeah, with preamplifier tubes, there really isn't any. They have a little cathode bias resistor that sets the bias itself.
Okay. What's new with Rogue? You have the Stereo 100, right?
Yeah, we're going to be coming out with, you heard it first, Stereo 100 Dark later this month, and that's going to be introduced at the Capitol Audio Fest in November.
Okay. It's happening, huh? It's happening, the Audio Fest?
They haven't said no. So yeah, I think they're looking for everybody to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test or something, which makes me feel more comfortable anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm standing there all day, because I'm going to actually go. We're Overture Audio in Delaware, which is a really large store, is doing 2 rooms, and one of them is dedicated to B&W and Rogue Audio. And so we're going to do the world premiere of the Stereo 100 Dark there.
What's the difference between the Dark and the...
Just like our Apollo Darks, there's a ton of resistor, capacitor upgrades. We even use the Nude Vichet resistors in some critical spots.
Yeah.
And those cost us like $40 a piece, so, which is insane for resistors.
They're not metal oxide.
And they don't even look like resistors. But yeah, we're used to, even for Vichet resistors, we buy in large volume and we pay pennies a piece for them, that kind of thing. So a $38 resistor is something pretty extraordinary in anybody's book. So
they're upgraded parts and...
Upgraded parts.
I guess it's darker backgrounds.
Yeah.
Is that why it's called dark?
No, it just sounded cool. That's
yeah. And does it look like a Star Wars?
No.
Being a dark side?
No, and Martin Logan, the guy from Martin Logan, used to call it the dark matter amps, and that's kind of cool too. But anyway, so we also just introduced the Pharaoh version 2, which is sort of loosely based on our Dragon amp, which has won a lot of industry awards.
The Dragon is also a hybrid, right?
It's a hybrid.
With the Hypex modules?
Uses the Hypex modules, but the Encore modules specifically, the OEM versions. So we redesigned the Pharaoh around those, which is really a complete redesign. The Pharaoh looks the same externally, but the 3 circuit boards inside are all new. The amplifier, power amp section is microprocessor controlled, and it's quieter. It has a better phono, new headphone amp. The amplifier itself is better sounding as a result of the Encore modules.
It was already
improved. Yeah.
It was already very robust when I owned mine.
Oh, you have one, that's right.
It was incredible inside to look at it. The power supply was ginormous.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to get another one.
We'll see what the wife says. Wait, she doesn't know. What's new with the phono preamps? I'm dying to try some of your phono preamps.
Yeah, so we updated the Aries to the Aries 2, and that had a new circuit board layout, which significantly improved the signal to noise ratio. It was quiet before; it's much quieter now. Less prone to ground loops and so forth. It's better sounding. We trimmed the RIA curve a little closer in that. So, yeah.
Does it have active moving coil amplification, or is it Cinemags?
It uses the Cinemag transformers, and we still make the Magnum version of it, which has the Cinemag Blue transformers in it, and upgraded parts and so forth. We probably sell more of the Magnum version than the standard version. They're both real nice.
Is that the top of the line or the more economical?
That's the top of the line.
And what is the most economical version
We
that you make?
We make something called the Triton 2, which is
Okay.
a solid state phono section. And actually, I really like it. It's a nice sounding phono section. It's very affordable. It's $12.95. Super quiet. It has about 70 dB of gain, and
That's
70
good.
dB of quiet gain, which
That's
is
hard to
pretty
do.
tough. Yeah.
Discrete components or op amps or combination?
We use a combination, but the op amps today, Pedro, are so good that it
they have
doesn't
improved.
make a lot of sense to use discrete transistors
Yeah.
anymore. So that one actually uses, other than for sonic reasons, which
Yeah.
you might, but not for noise. And we actually have sort of hit on a combination. There's 3 gain stages in that, and we actually use different op amps in each of the three gain stages. So there's 6 op amps in there altogether, so it's completely separate channels. And I think it sounds terrific. It belies the $12.95 price point for sure.
All of that for $1,200. That sounds very reasonable.
Yeah,
Can-
it's all adjustable.
Do you have one around that I can see, or
No,
has been built?
As Nick said, we've been so busy.
Yeah.
If it's not nailed down, we put a cover on it and ship it pretty much.
True.
So,
That's it's very good for you that you're busy.
well, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So this is an incredibly sophisticated volume control in here. That's it's a rotary control. It's an Elma switch that was custom made for us in Switzerland. These are all very high-end Vichy resistors that are individual. I think there's 32 steps. This is actually a miniature slipper clutch, like off of a Formula One car, and then we mount a servo motor to it. So it's you can see right now that's both channels overlaid, so it's perfectly matched. And
Well, why is it? Why when you turn it down, it was I was losing channels.
What happens is that mechanically it's one channel is contacting slightly before the other.
Yeah, right.
And there's nothing we can do about
No.
that. But and that's only at the very top volume. But you have to work to do that. In other words, if you just use the volume control, you never see it.
So, Mark, recently with the advent of products from the Far East, some of these companies, they offer you the best components, which have, the highest rated parts built in a way that they will give you the least amount of distortion and provide you with the best technical specs. Some websites review this stuff and they say that they're the best because they measure the best. What's your stand on that?
Well, I mean, if you're interested in really good measurements, then it's probably a good amp for you. If you're interested in something that sounds really good, they may still be a good amp, but I don't think measurements tell the complete story. They don't even really tell a whole lot of the story. What I have found is that really good sounding amplifiers will test well. And I like to think, our amplifiers sound really good, and they do test very well. Our RP7 or RP9, in fact, has bandwidth that goes up to nearly 300 kilohertz in high frequency. But I do the measuring afterwards, and I try and design the amplifier to be faithful to the original signal, and if it sounds really good, it'll probably test just fine. If it tests poorly, I don't think it's going to sound very good. So, there's a fine line there for sure. But sonics is the most important thing, and if you like what you hear, that's all that really matters.
So I think what you're saying is that it's not like you design the circuits on an AutoCAD or some kind of a circuit program and then you listen afterwards. You go along like a chef using you know, the ingredients, and then you add the salt and the pepper, and so your ear is very important,
Your ear
along with the
is-
measurements.
It's really all important. In fact, I mean, if it doesn't sound good, you know, you can't convince yourself to make it sound good. And you're right. There's a lot of art to the design of audio products, along with the CAD stuff helps too.
And you use a lot of tubes in your designs. I mean, I'm not saying that all of your products are tube equipment, but that tends to measure. Does that measure under what transistors do in terms of amplifying?
Yeah, I mean, it's not difficult to design a tube preamp that measures, you know, 0.01% distortion, okay? And in reality, you're not even going to hear distortion until it's probably, harmonic distortion anyway, until it's up around 1% or more. So, you know, whether it's 0.01 or 0.001 is irrelevant.
Okay, let me rephrase the question and ask you in a different way. Have you ever heard a piece of equipment, a preamp or an amplifier that measures perfectly 0.00008 distortion and sounds fantastic?
No, I can't say that I have really. I think you know, having some small amount of even order distortion, it actually makes it the sound much less edgy. And I'm not talking about 1%, I'm talking about 0.01%. But yeah, those last decimal points are irrelevant to the sonics for sure.
So what you're saying is that it is possible that you have heard equipment in the past that measures, I wouldn't say poorly, but sort of half poorly, but it actually sounds great. Not your equipment, I'm talking about, you know, hypothetically, or in the past.
Mean, certainly from an academic standpoint, that's possible. I think that you start, you know, equipment that doesn't test well, you start hearing things that either just a noise floor or an overly warm kind of sound that sort of the opposite of fatiguing, but it's not, you know, when you start losing resolution, that's no good either. So again, there's certainly a middle ground there, I think.
It seems like we went through this period in the 70s when we had the huge explosion of Japanese receivers and amplifiers where you would go home with the catalogs and you would see that the receiver would have 150 watts with 0.0005 distortion, and that just seemed to be the selling point.
Yeah.
You didn't care what it sounded like. You used the loudness control and it sounded great.
Absolutely, and I think when we were kids, we all fell for that. But particularly with solid state equipment, you can just keep adding feedback and reducing those numbers to virtually, you know, zero and or thereabouts. But that additional feedback really doesn't sound good. So
Okay.
you need some feedback to give yourself some woofer control, damping, and so forth. It's a fine line, and that's where your analogy to a chef comes in. The chef makes those calls, you know, too much or too little salt. So,
Okay.
so Pedro, this is our RH5 headphone amp. It also does have preamp outputs, both balanced and single-ended.
Oh.
It's actually Class A recommended preamplifier in stereophile, although it was never designed to be just a pure preamplifier. It's got two 3-pin headphone jacks. These are combi jacks, so they also have the ability to have a 1/4-inch jack inserted inside. It's got 4-pin balanced. There's an optional phono board that can drop in here.
Oh, really? So then it can be a real legit preamp.
Yeah, totally. And it's got balanced in, balanced out, 3 levels of gain. It's got a remote control. The volume can be dimmed. It's a really nice piece.
Is this a previous version or?
No, that's the same, but without a faceplate on it yet.
I see. Okay.
No, actually, yeah, there's 2 of them now.
They look really well made. Fantastic. Ok, mi gente, estoy saliendo de la fábrica de Rode y resulta que no le hicieron nada. Estaba bien. Tenía un problemita que el volumen no estaba bien balanceado en los volumen bajos, pero nada más que le movieron los tubos y ya con eso estuvo. Los tubos estuvo. Eso rima, como dice el chombo. Pero sí me dieron una tapa y no me cobraron. Le pusieron una tapa nueva, que es la del último modelo y que ahora va a permitir que respire. Pero no le cupo bien, porque como el que yo tengo es el original, el prototipo, ya cuando los estaban haciendo en serie, pues cambiaron un poquito las dimensiones. Pero sí cabe y le puedes poner 4 o 6 tornillos, pero no todos los tornillos entran bien. Pero aún así se ve mejor y va a respirar mejor porque tiene grietas, tiene espacio para ventilación. Así que nada, espero que hayan disfrutado esto y hasta la próxima.